Tried to turn it up really loud, but now I think we're good. Now it should be picking up our sound in the room.
Yeah.
Do you want to check that?
Yeah. Well, and she. I want to say changes, just water runs uphill, but yeah.
She goes.
Testing, we're testing, nothing. Testing sound in the room. See how we do. Morning. Alright, I'm gonna go ahead and move that. I'd like to do a test with you, Roger, when you get a chance and turn your, I want to see if I can hear you. You can hear me, right? Roger, are you able to hear me?
Yes.
He was here for the minute. Yep.
Sure.
Yeah, so I'm gonna try to get with Don.
Sure.
Hey, guys, I'm trying to test this mic.
Sure.
Okay, Roger, let's test you again, please, to see if we can hear you.
Good morning, everyone.
No. What are we gonna do? We're not getting his sound. Why are we not?
That and then mute all the mics.
Mute all the mics? Okay, I'm gonna mute my mic. You're not gonna be able to hear me, but I'm gonna need you to just keep talking, okay? Roger?
Okay.
Okay.
Good morning, everyone.
Hey, Roger, good morning. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Steve. I don't think they can hear us.
Yep. I can hear you loud and clear.
I had to put the audio. Try chatting again, talking, test.
Hey, Nat. Hope you can hear us. Steve and I can hear each other, but don't know if you can hear us.
He's not muted, so that's not.
You can?
You can hear him a little bit on that speaker? Okay. She's getting him a little bit on that speaker over there. We're gonna keep trying to get the volume going in the room. Sorry.
I've never had a.
Hey, Roger, give us another sound check.
I haven't checked yet.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
That's better.
Yeah, it's getting
All
louder.
right, hang on, let me keep going on this.
Roger, can you go again?
How's this? Can you hear me now?
Much better.
Good, better, okay.
Hey, Steven, can we get an audio check from you?
Sure, Tess, can you guys hear me this morning?
That's, yep. Thank you, Steven.
Okay, everybody, we are live, we are on the air, and it's time to get going. We're a minute and a half late. So, Madam Clerk, you're ready.
Bell. Here. Curran.
Here.
Freeling.
Present.
Harrison.
Here.
Hinkleman. Ott. Pittsford. Tyler. Borath. Werfel. Yarborough. Elliott.
Here. Dave's gonna be late and Mamie has other obligations today, I understand. So John, you're designated hitter. Minutes from a week ago. Any issues with the minutes? If not, moved by Werfel, supported by Freeling. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign. Minutes are approved. Requisition review.
Does anybody have any questions about the requisition list that was sent out? Perfect, thank you.
Thank you. We're going to talk now about the street drain project refinancing. We have Roger Sweats from Dickinson Wright in Grand Rapids, I'm guessing, or Detroit.
Grand Rapids.
Okay. All right. Roger, why don't you enlighten us?
Good morning. Yeah, as was set up, Roger Sweats with Dickinson Wright out of the Grand Rapids office. We are a firm in Michigan that's one of the leading firms working on tax exempt bond issues, and in particular, we have a lot of deep specialty with drain bond issues. And I don't know, 4 or 6 weeks ago, perhaps the county administrator and the drain commissioner contacted us and asked us to take a look at the financing documents that had been entered into at the end of November last year for the street drainage district financing. And we have done that, and we gave the drain office and the administrator kind of an agenda of 4 or 5, 6 points as to things that we could be engaged to do in looking at this financing. This, is needless to say, I think you're probably aware, an unusual financing, and there are a lot of issues that we looked at that could be explored on this issue. But I think the decision was, for sake of time and efficiency, to focus on an option that would involve doing a refunding bond issue to basically refinance the existing debt, which has to happen in a very narrow window. That refinancing would have to close on or before June 30th of this year, since the existing debt can only be prepaid on one day a year. So we would have a fairly significant task to move forward with to try and get that done by June 30th. And I do have to say, since we have not been engaged yet, there are a lot of issues. There's a lot of work to be done and issues that we need to dig into to make sure that this can happen. It's not a sure thing yet. This, again, being an unusual circumstance, poses some unique legal issues that we will need to work through, but we would be pleased to do that on behalf of the Drainage District and the county. Also on the call this morning is the county and the Drain Office's financial advisor, Stephen Burke of MFCI. Just to kind of explain the delineation of duties, as a lawyer, I do all the legal work and deal with what can be done for state law legal purposes and then federal tax and security law purposes for a tax exempt bond to be issued for a public project. Steve and his firm work as fiduciaries to the county and to the Drain Office to advise them on the financial implications and the financial advantages or disadvantages or issues that the involved with the financing to try and assure to the best of anybody's ability, that the county is in the Drainage District would be getting, the best possible financial advice for an issue like this. The bottom line in pursuing this financing, which would involve paying a prepayment premium to the holder of the existing bonds, which is about 6.5%. The bottom line is that MFCI is projecting that if the county or if the Drainage District did this, that there could be potentially, and Steve can correct me if I'm reading the report wrong, but potentially approximately $243,000 of net present value cash flow savings from doing a refunding that is basically what would be allowed under the terms of the existing financing document. Just accepting that document on its face and without delving deeper into any issues on that document. That number is based on a number of assumptions, including what the interest rate market would be and on what certain costs of issuance and other issues for the refinancing would be. So, Steve is operating in a very, wide range of unknowns at this point in time. So that's a best analysis of what might be. Certainly you would not take that as a guarantee of what will be, because we won't know until we actually clear through a number of legal issues and financial issues and would actually get a result from a possible purchaser in the marketplace. But I believe Steve feels, given all things that are known now, that this is a reasonable estimate of where this might come down. One thing I would say about this is really what this is kind of showing, because this savings analysis is based on the county pledging its full faith and credit to the bond issue. This is really showing what the value of a county full faith and credit pledge is to a project like this. The initial street financing was issued without the county's full faith and credit at a pretty high interest rate, and in the bond market, bond purchasers who do not have intimate firsthand knowledge of Berrien County or frankly, even what a Michigan drainage district is or how it operates, really need to have the assurance that the county, with its taxing power, standing behind the bond issues, is there to make sure that they get paid. And if they have that, basically the bonds get issued at a credit rating that's based on the county's financial strength instead of the drainage district's strength. A drainage district is kind of a unique entity in Michigan law that's not common elsewhere around the country. A drainage district is a separate legal entity. Technically, it's part of the component units of the county, but for legal purposes, it's its own separate legal entity. It has no employees. It has no budget. It has no taxing power. It really has nothing other than the physical asset of the drain that it owns and the ability to levy special assessments to maintain that drain that can be levied within certain constraints of state law. And then, most importantly, in a project like this, the special assessments that are levied and collected to build the project. And of course, since it would be a complete financial hardship to make those assessments due and payable at the beginning when they, all in 1 year when they would be needed to pay the contractor to build the project. Those assessments are typically levied over a number of years, and then the unpaid assessments carry an interest rate that can be up to 1 percentage point over the rate of the financing. And that's the financial tool that the drainage district has. There are a lot of safeguards in state law to protect a county that's pledging its full faith and credit. You can kind of think of a pledge of full faith and credit kind of like guaranteeing a loan, like you would say guarantee a car loan for your child. Unlike a personal guarantee like that, however, this is a much more legally necessary thing to do, and the drain code builds in a lot of protections to the county to protect you in case there would ever be one, protections to limit the need to ever call on that full faith and credit, but two, ways to recoup that money and pay the county back should that full faith and credit be called upon. Of course, in a worst case scenario, in a financing like this, you're looking at, a $14-15 million obligation. But in reality, because that amount is assessed against property owners, there's going to be a strong cash flow every year collected to provide for that payment. So unless there were just a universal total disaster, it's not anticipated that there's that kind of exposure that the county would accept. Typically, where you would see a need for the county to step in would be if there were properties in the special assessment district that were unable to pay their assessment. If that happens, those assessment delinquencies are treated just like all other delinquent taxes, and they would go to the county to collect pursuant to the delinquent tax program. If you have a delinquent tax revolving fund, those assessments are funded in the meantime through the delinquent tax revolving fund. And it's only when you get to the point of a property being sold at tax sale that there could be an issue if that property sells for less than the amount of delinquent taxes and assessments that are outstanding on the property. You're maybe familiar with the concept of a chargeback, which the taxing units receive when that happens. And if the drainage district had a chargeback, that's then where an issue would develop. A drainage district may, charge an interest rate of 1% over the bond rate, and that would help provide establishing a fund to collect monies that could be kind of a buffer. Now, in this case, I don't think that happened last year, so that may not be available. But to the extent that there are extra funds either left over from the contingency or just through cash flow accumulations over time, those would be used before any payment would be required by the county. And then only at that point in time would a payment be required. And so, if you're talking, you can imagine if you're talking about a single property, you're only talking about probably, $1,000, $2,000. I have not seen the roll for this project, but the typical individual assessments is not that large, for an annual installment. And so maybe you got a number of those annual installments that accumulate, but normally we would expect if this even happened, it would be small. I've been doing this for 20 years, and I've not seen a project where the counties actually had to pay. So this is extremely rare. I can't say it doesn't happen, certainly won't say it wouldn't happen. But this is something that is very rare. And then, should that happen, the drain code provides the ability to levy a deficiency assessment, to levy the amount of the deficiency to the drainage district and collect it, which that would then happen and repay the county. So you're typically looking at a small a small amount owed for maybe 2 to 3 years that it would take to collect that deficiency assessment and pay the county back. So I didn't mean to belabor that point, but I did want to kind of let you know a little bit more about what a full faith and credit pledge means. And I think from these savings numbers, you can see how important that is to, frankly, both to the county, to the local units in the county that are part of the drainage district, and then also largely to the property owners, because this interest savings, this savings is net of the costs of doing this. We need to refine those numbers a little bit once Steve and I would be engaged to do this, which we have not been yet. But the savings is net of those costs, and so this number, if it were to be achieved, would simply be passed on to the county, the local units, and the property owners that have been assessed for this project. Like I said, we have not been engaged yet. Once we are engaged, if the county and the drain commissioner would decide to move forward with this, we will dig in and look at the immediate issues that are faced to make sure that we can actually do this. Again, there's some work to do there, so we have not done that yet since we've not been engaged, but that would be our first priority. And then typically the way these engagements work, we are paid out of bond proceeds at the time the bonds close, and that fee would only come due if in fact the bonds close. So for the purpose of the limited engagement of being bond counsel on this refunding bond, that's how things would work. We could also be engaged for other issues that the drain officer county might want to look at. But what we're talking about this morning is just to do the refunding. Steve Burke is also on the line if you have questions about the numbers. I'm happy to take any questions, and if you've got questions on the numbers, Steve can take those.
And maybe this might be for George. What is the current property assessment to the individual homeowners? Not the county, but the individual homeowners, and how much will this reduce their assessment by?
Good. So that varies by how much property you own, what your house is like. So the numbers that I saw were somewhere between 20 and 30,000 total assessment. And then that gets divided out. How many years we got that? 20 years. There's about 430 property owners, I think.
430 properties.
Properties. Yeah, properties. Yeah.
Anyone have any questions? Any other questions? Ma'am?
Do you happen to know what the contingency was that was baked into the notes? Is it 5% or 10%?
It's 15, isn't it?
Oh, it's 15? Okay,
I think it's 15.
okay. I have another question, but in case someone
No,
else.
go ahead. Go ahead.
And then my other question, when we started this in November, there was an urgency from the drain office to get the project going because of the contractor. Has ground been broken yet for the project? It has? Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? I have a question that actually comes from the question about the contingency. For the refi, will the contingency stay at 15 or will it go to 10 or some other percentage? Either George or Mr. Sweats or whoever wants to take a shot at answering that.
Yeah, I can answer that. If it's okay, George. The contingency is set by state law, and it has to be between 10% and 15% pursuant to the drain code. That was all established in the computation of costs for the project when the day of review was held and the assessment roll was finalized. So that contingency would stay the same.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
Mr.
right.
Chair, can I offer a couple of comments?
Sure.
So to the board, this is something that you all were briefed about in the late part of 2024. And as staff, I just want to publicly thank Mr. McManus for his cooperation. Drain Commissioner took office January 1st, and he has been absolutely working his tail off This is something that, from your staff's perspective, we recognize that we are here to assist. We are thrilled to be able to work with George and his team. Between myself, Doug, our county staff, this is something that we have been trying really hard to assist, but we recognize it is not something that he has to do. And he has made time for this, and I know he is absolutely busy, but the fact that he's doing this and getting it done in very short order is very much appreciated.
Indeed. Anyone have anything more? No? Okay. All right, well, Roger, thank you. And George, first 100 days are most interesting, aren't they? Almost over, yes. All right, then. Well, we'll move on in the agenda, and that puts us to the point of public comments. Anyone have anything?
Mr. Chair, if I could, last week we talked about BEAD. So as a reminder, this is the broadband expansion grant, and something that we talked about was the local requirement was relatively low. It is support statements. And so to you all, we've had really, really good luck in the last week. The BC Bit page is absolutely getting loaded with support statements. So just in the course of a week, we have support statements from the Berrien County Board of Commissioners, thank you. From BC Bit, to the members, thank you. United Way of Southwest Michigan, the Connexus Group, Berrien County RISA, State House Representative Pauline Wenzel, State Senator Jonathan Lindsay. They have already submitted their support statements, and we have a whole bunch more coming. Now, to all of you, if you have local community organizations that you think should be involved, just send them my way. Last Friday, I absolutely blanketed the county internet with a request out to folks that we thought would be engaged, invested. But there's no wrong approach on this one. For the ISPs to get the maximum points, they're going to need a minimum of 10 support statements. And we're really close to that already, but we'd love to far exceed that number. So in a week's time, we've had a whole lot of support, but let's see if we can keep that going for next week. Any questions on that?
Okay, one more shot for public comments. All right, then. We can break a little early for committees if you wish. If anyone has any other business, we can deal with that. Otherwise, restroom breaks, smoke them if you got them and all that stuff. And then we'll queue up at 9:15. Thank you.